I'm joined right now by Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California, Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama, Joy Reid, host of AM Joy on Msnbc, and Susan Del Percio, a Republican strategist. I want to start with the congressman, as I should. What I thought tonight might be an opportunity for Trump to change course, because most presidents, when they lose a midterm, and this was a wipeout for the Republican Party this November, they changed the way they were doing things so that they can get reelected. Congressman, he didn't change anything.
That's right, Chris. And I think one of the most surprising things the president said was that somehow he was not going to work with us on legislation if we investigated him.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. Members of Congress took an oath to the Constitution. We have a duty to both pass legislation and to conduct oversight over the other two branches. We're not going to abdicate one for the other. We will investigate Donald Trump, and we will pass legislation.
Did you tie together the idea of what the president said tonight? In other words, let's kill these investigations, especially the Mueller one, with the idea of Whitaker, the acting attorney general, recently said this thing's almost over. Were they working together, do you think? Somebody thinks that. We had a guest on today who thought they were working together, the President Whitaker, to squeeze down Mueller.
Right. Well, first of all, Mueller's investigation is not partisan. He happens to be a Republican who's investigating the Republican president. And this Friday, the House Judiciary Committee, in which I sit, we're going to call in Matt Whitaker and question him under oath. I don't think he knew what he was really talking about when he said that the Mueller investigation was going to end anytime soon, because we saw with the Roger Stone tranche of evidence that they found, there's lots of issues there to go through, and it doesn't seem like it's going to conclude anytime soon.
Hang on there, Congressman. Let's go to Joy Reid on this. The president started out with a preamble.
Yeah.
Like in the Constitution. We're going to hold these dues to be self-evident. Let's get together, come by eye.
Right.
And then forget that.
Yeah, enough of that.
It's moral. It's a moral issue about the wall. You know, Nancy Pelosi can say it's moral. I can say that, too. We're fighting to the death.
Yeah, and he repeated twice in his preamble that the politics of resistance must end. I think that was sort of the setup to the speech, is you must stop resisting my administration. That's part one.
How about revenge?
But the revenge part is completely not on the table, because what he's essentially saying is no legislating, nothing else happens until you stop investigating me. And then he goes on to tie his becoming president to being essentially the only thing that stopped us from being, engulfed in thermonuclear war with North Korea. I mean, it was so grandiose and over the top. But then when he pivoted to the parts that were for the people he really governs, his base, it was Brown Scare. It was, showing this family, this poor family that had this tragedy to illustrate how dangerous immigrants are and how we have to turn them back and how it's a matter of love of country to get rid of them, and the wall and all of that sort of stuff. And then the hardcore abortion politics he delved into. This was essentially a rally speech. And by the way, the gallery responded as if they were at a Trump rally with all the hooting and hollering. It was a rally speech. This is why he wanted to do his speech.
Susan, I thought he was firming up his core.
Yeah.
He may get above 40% for a couple days. I would say 43, 44 if he's lucky coming out of this, because he definitely hit the pro-life case on the late-term issue, which is very tricky, very difficult for a lot of people. He talked about this whole question of illegal immigration. He loves legal immigration. That's new. But he made people feel good. They weren't really anti-Brown. They were just for legal Brown, basically, to put it bluntly. What did you think of it? I thought it was a core speech.
Well, I think he hit all the notes he had to for his base, but I think it was a speech given out of fear, actually, because the only thing this president has as he attempts to govern is he can threaten Republican primaries, and that's it. So he shores up his base so they stay with him, because this week Mitch McConnell knows, and he told the president, I have 12 senators, Republican senators, who are against you enacting an emergency act on the border. So I think he's cornered. I think he went right to his easy spot, which is the base. But the biggest thing is, and it's almost laughable, is who knows what he's going to tweet in 6 hours. And that's what, you can't take him at what he says. You can't negotiate with him. You can't take him in an address.
And Chris, what was the policy?
I want to get to Ben just for one question. It's especially Ben Rhodes. Thanks for joining us tonight. It seems to me that he took a shot at Obama, saying that I am the guy who saved our North Korean policy. It was going in the dirt, and I saved it.
Well, I mean, Chris, first of all, you should have thanked Obama for that economy that he was bragging about.
Sure.
Most of the economic indicators he talked about, the job creation, the growth, started years before under Obama. On North Korea, This hypothetical war that he was talking about, I don't think there was any collision course headed towards war. In fact, the only thing that put us on a path towards escalation with North Korea early in the Trump administration was Trump's own tweets. And in fact, what we now know from our own intelligence community is even though he's been heaping praise on Kim Jong-un, even though he's had this initial summit and now is preparing for a second summit, our own intelligence community finds no indication that North Korea is giving up their nuclear weapons. So as with a lot of things Trump says, underneath the surface of boasting, there's no there underneath.
Let me go to Congress Lieu on this question of socialism, because fortunately, there's a world to look at. There's a lot of different laboratories of socialism. There's the Northern Europe version, which is democratic, and there's some horrendous versions that come out of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact, which they call themselves socialist republics and all. And then we have the Latin American version right now with Venezuela and Cuba. I thought that was a pretty good direct shot at Bernie, at AOC. I thought that was pretty direct. Let's watch it for a second.
Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. America was founded on liberty and independence, and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free, and we will stay free. Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country.
Congressman, that was a cri de guerre for 2020, if I ever heard one. That's what they're going to make the election about next year. The Democrats are socialist. They're just like Maduro down there in Venezuela. They're like Castro brothers, the bad Castro brothers. And you better look out. What do you think?
I just want to remind the president and Republicans that Social Security and Medicare are socialist-type programs. And it's absolutely true. Democrats want to expand Social Security and Medicare, and that's what we should be doing in our country. And if the president wants to run on that, terrific. We will beat him at it. I do think the president instead is going to revert back to the wall and these big, scary caravans he keeps talking about. I just want to note that these scary caravans present themselves at our legal checkpoints. They don't end up in Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania.
Well, perhaps the president's biggest applause line tonight was unintentional as he tried to tout his administration's accomplishments for women. Let's watch.
No one has benefited more from our thriving economy than women, who have filled 58% of the newly created jobs last year. You weren't supposed to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All Americans can be proud that we have more women in the workforce than ever before. Don't sit yet. You're going to like this.
Well, you know, Joyce, all those women dressed in white to make a point. And here they are laughing because they've sort of turned the tables because they all have new jobs.
Correct.
They're called U.S. members of Congress.
And he doesn't get it. Donald Trump is congratulating himself for all of the new women who've gotten jobs in the country, while the women are congratulating themselves for having these new jobs in Congress that are in large part because of the revulsion against Donald Trump's mistreatment of women. It was so out of the joke, he didn't get it. He thought that they were applauding for him, clearly. And it's ironic that that is juxtaposed with his talk about coercion and control, because in the same speech, he reasserted that he wants the government to have coercion and control over women's bodies. The man, he completely missed the moment. He didn't get it.
Susan, what you make of the night? I thought there were some appeals to Republicans in the night, not just the right-wing core. I think we talked about socialism. Republicans really don't like socialism.
No,
really, a lot of Democrats
really don't
too.
like them.
And I think because they think of it as economic control by the government completely, and to a degree of too much control over their lives. But they also, the abortion thing, I think, worked well in Pennsylvania, a place like that. I think he knew exactly who he was talking to, the people that elected him.
And acknowledging the veterans certainly worked for him. But I actually think the moment that will get most under the president's skin is when Speaker Pelosi was able to control her members by just putting up her hand just a little bit when they started to boo. The power, and it just summed it up about how they respect her.
Yeah.
And I think that's just going to be the thing that irks Donald Trump the most, which is...
Congressman, was everybody's eyes, men and women in the Democratic caucus tonight, on the speaker? Because it seemed like the slightest little gesture of calm down, cool, seemed to work.
The two best things about the State of the Union tonight were that when you looked at Congress, you saw the most diverse Congress in U.S. history. First two Native American women in Congress, first two Muslim American women in Congress, the youngest woman in Congress ever. And the second best thing was to see Speaker Pelosi sitting behind Donald Trump, looking down at him.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please keep coming on our show, Congressman Ted Lieu of California. By the way,